This is Between the Uprights. Football is life. The rest is just details. Here are your hosts, Joe, Matt, and Chris.
Who are the best tight ends in this 2025 NFL draft class? That's what we are here to tell you today. Obviously, at the top, you've got a big-time guy in Tyler Warren, the tight end out of Penn State. He is a big-time player. If you've watched him at Penn State, I know I'm a USC fan. I watched that USC game, and he absolutely cooked us for 4 quarters in that USC game. But there are a lot more big names in this tight end class that could potentially make an impact in the NFL as soon as next season. So I'm going to kick it to Sammy first. Much to my chagrin, I'm going to kick it to Sammy first. Sammy, I want you to tell me who you think we should be looking out for as far as tight ends go in this 2025 draft.
This is a very deep tight end class, let me tell you. And when deciding who to pick, I decided not to go with the big fishes here because, again, it's a deep tight end class. And honestly, like, it was difficult trying to dig for a tight end, but ironically, the Senior Bowl happened a couple of months ago or about a month ago, and Elijah Arroyo popped up on everybody's radar for the routes that he was running. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to cover him. I watched Elijah Arroyo. I'm a University of Miami fan all year long. And he never really struck me as an insane route runner. But during the Senior Bowl, he displayed a level of route running that I had not seen at Miami, mostly because he had been injured. But even in the year that he was fully healthy, he never really seemed like this insane route runner. So Elijah Arroyo, he's 21 years old, so relatively young, 6'5", 250 pounds. He just came off of a year where he was second team All ACC, 35 catches, 590 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Now, there is not a better, in my opinion, in the entire draft. I don't think anybody of all the tight ends, I don't think anybody's hands are safer than Elijah Arroyo. He only has a 2.1% career drop rate, only 1 drop in the entire year of 2024/2025. He's got great hands. He has great ball tracking as well. For a tight end, I think he works best as a vertical threat, which I think definitely helps in this era of NFL where the quarterbacks are really dropping back most of the time and running the ball isn't necessarily as popular as it was in the 2000s and such. He's got freakish length and speed for his position. Like I said, 6'5", 250 pounds. But he's also very smart. He understands zone coverages very well. He knows the spots to sit at whenever he's a very great seam beater as well. Whenever he catches the ball, though, after the catch, he had 317 yards after the catch, and his fastest ball carrier time was 21.8 miles per hour. So almost 22 miles per hour. We're talking about a tight end, 6'5", 250. That is not normal at all. Like, let's just call it what it is. He has a great willingness to block in space, but willingness doesn't necessarily mean he was necessarily that good of a run blocker. He was inconsistent as a run blocker as well as route running, which is why I was so surprised when I saw the Reese Senior Bowl and he was just cooking. Granted, they were safeties, so like I can't really blame him for blame. And also, one-on-ones really favor the wide receiver more than anything, or wide receiver or tight ends more than anything. So I did take it with a bit of a grain of salt, but he had a lot of twitchiness in the routes that I saw him run that I had not seen in the University of Miami. But this is why a lot of people aren't very aware of Elijah Arroyo and how great he could be in the league, and that's his injuries. He played just 8 games in a 2-year span before the 2024 season where he played all 13 games, and that is something, and I believe one of the injuries was a knee injury, and a guy that's 6'5", 250 pounds, that's a lot of weight to be carrying, and coming off of an injury, that's always something that's like a little worrisome. Now he struggles sometimes as an inline blocker. So like I said, he's going to be working more vertically. He's not the best blocker. He can work on it for sure. But really the only concern I have for him is injuries. I think everything on the offensive side of the ball when it comes to, especially, I'll mention it again, in an era where we are talking about passing the ball and quarterbacks who can just do whatever they want like with their arms and stuff. It's just it's one of those things. It's one of those things where like a tight end like him, you can maximize his potential in the next level. He's got to stay healthy. That's my biggest concern with him. But I do think if he stays healthy, and I don't know if this is going to be a hot take or not, but I actually had him at over Mason Taylor. I think he's a better tight end than Mason Taylor. I really do. The only reason why he's not over Mason Taylor is really because of injuries. I'm really convinced of that. I'm not being a homer either. I'm just saying, like, hey, by the way, Mason Taylor just so happens to be the son of Jason Taylor, one of the greatest Dolphins of all time. So I could have been a homer for him too. Just saying. But that's not my point. The point I'm trying to make is this. There's so much explosiveness with Elijah Arroyo. He's got safe hands. He's great in space. He can accelerate. I think if you refine his route running, if you refine his blocking at the next level, he can be a very big surprise in the maybe third round or maybe an early day 3 pick.
Wow, shocking by you, Sammy, making a University of Miami tight end or a University of Miami player in general.
What do you mean, man?
What a shocking development here on Between the Uprights.
And then he goes, the next player I could have went is, Miami Dolphins' great son. Oh, but I could
Hold
have
on, I made that point. I made that point. I made that point.
Options I'm homers for.
Hold on.
Cam McCormick, 38th year senior from University of Miami. Okay. Well, you could have gone with him too. We might as well go with Cam McCormick.
I made that comment. Hold on. I made that comment about Mason Taylor. Said he was better than Mason Taylor. Just so, you know what? I'm not going to explain myself. I made my point, all right? I'm not going to sit here and explain myself to you schmucks. Unbelievable.
Damn. Sammy, you made good points. He's a good player. Obviously, Elijah Arroyo is a good player, and we all saw what he was capable of doing with Cam Ward last year, and maybe that's a good spot for him. In the third or fourth round, a Tennessee Titans reunion with Cam Ward in Tennessee would be potentially a good fit there for Elijah Arroyo. But I'm going to kick it to Chris. Chris, I saw you had some beef with what Sammy was saying down there a little bit too, so I'll let you expound upon that. But also, tell me your tight end that you're thinking about for this 2025 NFL draft.
Yeah, so I wasn't expecting Mason Taylor to start taking strays that early on. I was so excited to talk about him, and then he just started catching strays. I don't know how to feel about that. But my guy is Mason Taylor. Surprise, surprise to that, and it has absolutely nothing to do with his father being, a defensive end in Miami by any means, because I'm not a Miami fan. But anyways, so I do. I like Mason Taylor a lot. I watched a lot of his stuff. I watched a lot as far as like if any of you guys watched his pro day, I was quite impressed with it. And you go back and watch the film. I don't think he gets as much love as he should, to be quite honest. He's 6 foot. I think he has a typical thing. He's 6'5", he's 255 pounds, which is about typical of what you want from a tight end. And the thing I like about Mason Taylor is I think he meets what you want overall from a tight end, period. Because I think we get so caught up on tight ends as either they're really good pass blockers or they're really good, basically big wide receivers. But we don't see a lot of interest in the tight ends who really do both. And we don't see it very often, in my opinion, of a good tight end that can do both sides, where they can both block and catch the ball as well and do so at such a good rate. And I feel like that's where Mason Taylor is at. He didn't have a ton of yards this season. He had 55 receptions, 546 yards. He did average 9.9 yards per reception, which I loved. Something I do love about him is that he's strong, he's savvy, he has natural hands. So I don't know where we get the so-and-so is better than him. I don't see that at all, to be quite honest. I think his hands are just ridiculously natural. And if you looked at his Senior Bowl and the Pro Bowl, right? So I thought he did very well in the Senior Bowl, but looking at his Pro Day, you can't not love this guy. He had a 4.6 40 time at Pro Day, which would have had him top 5 in the tight ends in the combine had he actually if you run the 40 in the combine. His 3-cone, he was a 7.6 in the pre-cone, the 3-cone on his pro day, also would have been top 5 in the tight ends if he would have done it in the combine. And then you look at, his bench press, right? I mean, dude is strong, like ridiculously strong. So he had 28 bench presses. And then he was a 90% percentile in that, which would have had him at second best in the combine, only to CJ, I don't know how to say his name, so I'm going to mess this up, CJ Dupree out of Alabama, who had 32. But outside of that, dude had 28 bench reps. And this is a very strong dude. He's very tall. He has really good size. He is very strong. And then, again, with the natural hands, right? So he's, to me, and what everything that I looked up, he was listed as the top tight end in regards to hands, believe it or not. Over Harold Fannin Jr. He's over Tyler Warren, and he's over who's the other tight end that everybody's looking at?
Loveland.
Loveland.
Yeah, Loveland as well. He's over all three. He is at the top list when it comes to who has the best hands. Now, not only does he have really good hands, we just talked about it, he has good blocking ability. He is top 5 in blocking within the 2025 tight end class. Again, this is better than Warren. It's better than Loveland. It's better than Fannin Jr. And it's better than Arroyo. Okay? So, for me, I look at him, and I know this might be a homer take, seriously, but I really see a lot of mix between Rob Gronkowski and Cade Stover. Specifically, Rob Gronkowski. They both had really big size, and he was really good at both sides. He was able to get down the field. He made a lot of catches. He made a lot of big plays, but also he was a good tight end guy for your quarterback in specific when they needed somebody to hot routes, whatever you want to call it. He was the guy that Brady went to, right? He was also a really good blocker. That dude would get in and block right along with the offensive line. And I think that's what you would want, in my opinion, from an overall tight end. That's why I do call him the GOAT when it comes to tight ends, because he plays both sides. He can be a big target. He can also do a lot of dirty work, and he did that on both sides. So that's what I look at when I look at Mason Taylor. Yes, he has the famous, his father being Jason Taylor, which is amazing to me. And funny enough, his dad was drafted in the 3rd round in 1997, and you could possibly see him go 3rd round. That's where a lot of people have him going right now. But quite honestly, I mean, you might see the Dolphins might pick him up, in maybe the mid or late 3rd rounds. But I do feel like he might go a little bit earlier than that. I could see him going maybe towards the bottom end of the 2nd round, to be quite honest. Does he have weaknesses? Of course. Although he does have solid blocking, he does need to improve his run blocking. Okay, so in 2024, his run blocking grade was a 59.1, which was 175 out of 452 tight ends. So if I'm the head coach, quite honestly, I don't care. That's the purpose of having good coaches. Is there, there's nothing that you look at him and say, hey, he's not going to be able to improve from that. That's the entire, you're going to hear this from me a million times, probably on a million different takes when it comes to the difference between taking somebody who does have weaknesses or, proposed weaknesses that you see from scouts and everything like that. And you look at them and say, oh no, they're not going to be able to improve from that. Yes, the hell they can. Can we go back to Brady's draft presentation and everything they wrote about him and what he couldn't do and what he would never be and all of those type of things? Like, I don't know why people put so much stock in. I understand what scouts do, and I understand the importance of it, but I think also kind of like in Sammy's take, as far as sometimes take it with a grain of salt. Like, yeah, they may have some missing opportunities there or some opportunities to improve, but I wouldn't necessarily say I'm going to look at this guy and not pay attention to his tape, but just pay attention to what this take is from the scouts and say, oh, like I don't think he's going to be a good player. I think it's BS, quite honestly. So if I'm looking at him, I don't really care about the weaknesses because the weaknesses aren't crazy. Now, yes, does he need to develop sophisticated route running? Absolutely. Doesn't every early tight end and wide receiver that you've ever seen, running back, whatever position you look at, if they're coming into the NFL, majority of them are going to need to include or to bring
enhance.
Up. Yeah, there you go. It's a better word for it. Is enhance their sophistication in whatever it is that their role is requiring. For this one specific in route running, right? So I don't really think that's a concern. So if I'm looking at a Mason Taylor, and quite honestly, if you're looking at a team that needs a tight end, and because this is such a tight end heavy class, and you don't want to take one early in the 1st round, I would not be opposed to, going towards like the mid-level 2nd round or even the bottom part of the 2nd round. Even if you have maybe a high 3rd pick, is to get back into the 2nd round at the bottom of it and maybe take Mason Taylor, because I think he is going to be a very good tight end for a lot of years in the NFL if he goes to the right situation with the right coaching staff that can build him up and allow him to keep improving who he is. But I love Mason Taylor as a tight end, and I don't think he's getting enough love whatsoever.
Chris, you made a lot of really good points, especially about coaching in there. I think a lot of people, and speaking from a coach's perspective here as well, people are scared of coaching. Like, coaches are scared to coach. And Mike Tomlin went on a really good rant about this. Is like, coaches can't be scared to coach. Like, you can't expect, people to your players to come in and be perfect, right? That's what you help them with. That's what you're there to do. It's help them to get the most out of themselves. And like you said, Mason Taylor's got a lot of those raw intangibles, a lot of those raw tangibles, I should say, that are going to make him a great tight end if he gets to the right situation. So I agree with you. I think Mason Taylor, if he goes to the right situation, he's going to make somebody's life really, really, some quarterback's life and some offense's life very, very happy as far as that goes. But Joe, I'm going to kick it to you, man. What do you think about this tight end class, and who is your tight end that you are watching for this 2025 NFL draft?
I was kind of torn between, going with Gunnar Helm, who played the most snaps of any tight end in this draft. He played 1,054 snaps. But, I kind of watched him and I was like, he didn't perform well at the combine. He's got one of the lowest athleticism scores. He ran one of the slowest 40s. He ran one of the slowest, 10-yard splits. I mean, he just doesn't seem to have the athleticism that you kind of saw on tape. And, you're kind of wondering, does he really have that yak ability that we kind of saw and all those sorts of things? He's consistently out there, which is a good part of him, but I think he's overrated on this board right now from my looks at Gunnar Helm. So I'm going to talk about a guy that really isn't getting a lot of love and I think should get a lot of love. And that is going to be Oronde Gadsden II. And everyone's going to go, who? And justifiably so, but Oronde Gadsden II is kind of an anomaly inside of the tight end group because people aren't sure how he projects to the NFL. He's 6'5", but he's only 237 pounds. He's got a very large wingspan. He actually was second in contested catches and fifth in deep yards and second with deep catches in 9. He's got a 60.7% contested catch rate per PFF. His separation due to kind of rounding his routes off and how tall he is kind of, lowered his yards of separation as a tight end, but he's a big body guy, turns to the quarterback, presents a large target, and his wingspan is insane, which you see in his contested catch. You put the tape on and, you can kind of see why he was so productive. I mean, the years where he played a full season, which was 2022 and 2024, he had a Liz Frank injury in 2023, which limited him to basically one game and the first drive of week 2. The guy was almost 1,000-yard guy. He had 966 yards, 15.8 per, and 6 touchdowns. And then in 2024, he had 934 yards, 12.8 yards per, and 7 touchdowns. And frankly, from a move tight end perspective, where we're actually expecting our tight ends to kind of be, out there in the slot, sort of move them around the formation, we're not really seeing the tight end, especially from a valuable standpoint, be inline blockers realistically anymore. If you need an inline blocker, you're bringing an extra offensive lineman in, and that's how you're getting it, or you're bringing in a defensive lineman or a linebacker to be a fullback, right? The prototypical inline tight end that we saw from like Rob Gronkowski realistically doesn't have a place in the NFL anymore. That's why guys like Hunter Henry, who are at least serviceable at blocking, are considered to be top tier guys because they do provide more of an offensive punch. Oronde Gadsden's that kind of guy. He's going to give you that red zone threat. He's bigger than the linebackers. He's faster than the linebackers because he outstrides them. He's going to be able to body any corner or line or safety you put on him because he's that big, right? So personally, I think Oronde Gadsden, who, believe it or not, for a receiving grade has an 82.6% or 82.6 receiving grade in PFF, played a lot of good competition. He played Pitt, he played Virginia Tech, Boston College, Cal, University of Miami, Georgia Tech. We saw, there's some solid competition that we see there, and he's played very, very well coming off of that Liz Frank injury. Consistently from 2022 all the way to 2024 is an 80 plus PFF grade at the position. So I don't understand why he's rated so lowly. A lot of the times when you hear some of the commentators watching Oronde Gadsden, they say, there goes the best tight end in the ACC. You know what I mean? Like, that's what they say. The guy had 73 receptions. And if you look at the ACC as a whole on who led receptions, Oronde Gadsden was 4th. And believe it or not, you have 4 Syracuse players in the top 10 for receptions in the ACC. It's Trevor Pena, Jackson Meeks, are first and second. Oronde Gadsden is fourth, and then LaQuint Allen is tied for seventh right now with Taylor Morin in Wake Forest. So Syracuse threw the ball very well. Oronde Gadsden was part of that reason, and I think he's probably only going to be a late day 3 undrafted free agent type of tight end that could plug into an offense who can really, really, really use his skill set, especially in the red zone. So I look for Oronde Gadsden to be a late game changer to keep people just, watch where he ends up in the undrafted free agent market or late in the rounds, because I think that he is going to be a steal if you're looking for that move tight end kind of guy to really go out there and open up your offense from just having a massive wingspan.
Yeah, I was on mute. That sounds like a great that's that Joe. What I was saying before I realized I was muted is that sounds like a great late round steal. Obviously, if you're a team who needs a tight end, but there's a lot of these teams that need a lot of other things in the draft as far as offensive linemen. This is a really deep D line draft, which we're going to talk about here pretty soon. Really deep as far as running backs go as well. So if you need a late round tight end flyer, like you mentioned, that could be a very, very good option there as well. But I am not going for the late round tight end flyer, Joe, because I'm mainstream media today. I'm going for a mainstream name. I'm going for one of the biggest names in the NFL draft because I was kind of curious about him. I'd obviously seen him before. I'd heard the name before, but I wanted to do my research and really see kind of what he was about. And we've already kind of touched on him a little bit. It's Colston Loveland from Michigan. That's who I wanted to talk about today. 6'6", 245. And we've been kind of talking about, the height and weight for tight ends. I feel like the standard height, weight for tight end is 6'4", 6'5", 250. Like that, like you can just kind of bookmark that as a tight end 9 times out of 10. But Loveland a little bit taller, 6'6", and he's 245. So he's a little bit of a taller, skinnier type guy, and he's young. He's just 20 years old. He's going to turn 21 here in less than a week. This is an extremely unique player, ladies and gentlemen. Basically, he's Chris, you talked about this earlier. He's basically just an oversized wide receiver. He is bad in the run game as far as blocking goes. He's not a true inline tight end, but this guy can catch the football right now, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm not worried about his numbers last year. If you could tell me, he had 580 yards receiving. He was the only real receiving threat on a run-heavy team with absolute trash at quarterback. You had Davis Warren, Alex Orji, nice, and Jack Tuttle. Okay, those were the quarterbacks. Okay, those were the Michigan quarterbacks last year for Colston Loveland. Okay, so I'm not taking last year's stats that too far into account. And he had J.J. McCarthy his sophomore year, and we saw him do a lot better in his sophomore year as far as his numbers go. So the positives for Loveland, he is a super versatile weapon. Like I mentioned before, Michigan was finding literally every way to use him. There were screens, there end arounds. They put him in the slot. They split him out wide as a wide receiver. And they did literally everything they could possibly do to get him the ball. An elite route runner, both in the slot and on the outside. You see him take advantage of corners. You see him take advantage of safeties. You see him take advantage of linebackers. Basically, whoever was on him, he is an absolute mismatch. And that's what a great tight end is, an absolute mismatch in the passing game. And like I said, go watch his sophomore tape to kind of help better understand what he can be with a competent quarterback, because last year it was pretty rough and we saw some rough patches for that Wolverines offense last year. But his fluidity in and out of his breaks, his movement and his acceleration for someone who's as big as he is, as tall as he is, really jumps off the screen. He's got great hands as well. And he's super intelligent. He finds the soft spots in the zone and he gets his head around and makes himself available for quarterbacks very quickly. And that's something that's really, really important for quarterbacks in today's NFL. Like I mentioned, though, the negatives, he can't block. He's a terrible blocker. He can't block whatsoever. He's going to get smoked if you leave him in line against edge players in the NFL. He's going to get absolutely smoked in the run game. If you leave him in as an extra blocker in the pass game, you just wouldn't do that. You just split him out wide or you put him in the slot. You just wouldn't leave him in as an extra blocker because he's going to get smoked because he's just not strong or big enough right now weight-wise to deal with like a speed or a power combo of those guys, especially in the NFL on the edge. And he's going to have to play a lot of slot. Like I said, I don't think he's going to play much of an inline tight end role in the NFL. And again, if he's in the slot, I'm concerned about guys that play physical press coverage and kind of get in and up underneath him with, get in nice leverage as far as corners and DBs go against him, because that's something that he could struggle with as well. And he had some focus drops on his tape as well. Like he had some where he was already trying to run upfield and he, took his eyes off the ball and dropped it, stuff like that. So I am concerned a little bit as far as that goes with Colston Loveland as well. My comparison for him is someone we just saw get picked in the top 5 of the NFL draft just a few years ago. And it's someone whose potential hasn't been quite seen yet. I see a little bit of a less of a Kyle Pitt, like a little bit less athletic Kyle Pitts. That's what I see from Colston Loveland. Similar size, they're like identical as far as size goes, and they're both not true like tight ends. They're more wide receivers, just bigger, and then they're both bad blockers, but they both have potential to be really, really special in the pass game because of their versatility and ability to outrun linebackers and outsize DBs. So for me, best fits for Loveland, I see Colts at 14 as the soonest he could go. I don't really like that because Anthony Richardson is not going to be able to get him the ball. I like Kansas City. Chris, you talked about this as well in your Kansas City video. I like Colston Loveland to Kansas City a lot as like a bridge between, Kelsey to Loveland. And you see a little bit of Kelsey's game in Loveland's game as well, just as far as how he gets in and out of breaks, his shiftiness as well. You see a little bit of his game in there. But I think his best fit is going to be the Los Angeles Chargers at this 22nd pick in the first round. You're reunited with Jim Harbaugh. You get a quarterback like Justin Herbert. Guys like Ladd McConkey is going to take some pressure off him as well, where he doesn't have to be the number one guy right away. I think that, especially him being a giant target with a guy like Justin Herbert would fall in love with him right away. So I think Colston Loveland will be a really, really good target for the Chargers at 22nd overall. And my overall takeaway, I think given the right situation, he's a Pro Bowl caliber tight end. He can make a Pro Bowl as soon as year 2 or year 3, in my opinion. And don't turn him in whatever team drafts him. Do not turn him into an inline tight end. He's not ready for that. He needs more weight. He obviously needs to work on his technique some more as well. Emphasize his strengths in the receiving game, and we could potentially see Loveland turn into what Kyle Pitts was supposed to be as far as when the Falcons drafted him. So, but there's a lot of really good tight ends in this class, like we mentioned, and the 2025 NFL draft is going to get your team their favorite tight end and see if we can produce with them in 2025.
This has been Between the Uprights. Football is life. The rest is just details.